And we're live. What's up, Kingdom of Rock? This is Matt Gibson, and we're here today on this beautiful sunny Saturday. Well, it's sunny here in Southern California, and I actually heard snow somewhere. It's snowing somewhere out there in the world, on the eastern side of the country. Did you hear that?
I didn't hear that, but I know it's pretty cold in northern New Jersey right now, where my parents are. So,
jeez, that's crazy. I just moved to California in September, and it's funny now that I'm acclimated here. Snow just kind of causes fear in my heart when I hear about it.
Like, well, if you're a real Californian, rain also causes fear. So.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's true. Mm-hmm. Well, so we're here today with Linda Lou, and we are going to talk about all kinds of cool stuff, especially her band Marishi Ten. Is that how you pronounce it? Is it Marishi?
That is Marishi Ten. You are correct.
Okay, good. Yeah. I didn't really check the pronunciation guide on that, so
you did great.
Good guess.
Yeah, phonetics, Matt.
I know.
Syllable by syllable.
Well, see, I learned Italian opera, and the phonetics are a little different, so I get confused sometimes.
Yeah.
You know. But anyway, so we're here today with Linda Lou. Do you go by Linda Lou or Linda?
Either one's fine. You can call me Double L if you want. I mean, I'll answer.
Yeah. I can be Double M then.
Yeah. There you go. Exactly. Happy.
And I could be like that little sports car MG thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's all cool. Right. I don't like that. That's not as cool. Well, all right. So we're here to talk about music and how the COVID-19 virus has ruined it, and what are we going to do to make it better. So, Linda, let me ask you this. And I've been asking, like, hey, have you lost any gigs or momentum in this? And I'm going to just not ask you that. I'm going to assume.
No, I mean, you can totally ask me that. I've experienced two sides of this, so I'm a good person to have this conversation with.
Well, every time that I ask that, the answer is yes, and it really sucks. So I'm just decided I'm just going to let you tell us how it's ruined everything.
Tell us 2 ways you've been murdered by this.
Yeah. So, all right. So the obvious thing is that, we can't play shows. And the really interesting thing, a lot of people I'm sure that you've had on, because you've had some very famous guests on your show who do a lot of touring. They're all like, oh, this year's done for me. I had all these plans. I did have plans, but Marishi Ten has been very much like a project that's been existing where I'm sitting right now in my living room studio for the past year and really 2 years now. And I had just put together a live band to start playing shows and doing rehearsals. And I was really excited to be able to follow up this single with shows, but it's just going to have to wait. I mean, and I was excited to do that, but it's not like touring has been a big part of my life for the past 2 years. So I'm kind of like, it doesn't feel different to me, even though it's a bum out that it's going to be put off for a little bit, but it is what it is. And on the other side of things, we were talking before we started just going live about some press that I've recently gotten. And I'd like to think that I would have gotten that press and people would have been just as interested in the single that I released if we weren't all in lockdown. But there's a good chance that, because not much other things have been happening in music, that I got a little bit of a break with that. So that might have been a silver lining for me. I mean, we have no way of knowing.
That's right. You were just in Guitar World, right?
Yeah. We were talking about that.
How did that go down?
Well, I had a while back, I think it was the second or third day that we were in quarantine. I got an email from a PR company that I was working with that said, hey, if you want to submit to this thing, you're more than welcome to. And Guitar World was starting a series called Sick Riffs, and they just asked guitar players to film themselves breaking down one of their riffs from an original piece of music, in a short video. And I was like, yeah, sure, totally, I'll do it. And I didn't hear anything from them for well over a month, so I just didn't think that they chose it. And then yesterday, Sick Riff number 33 is a Marishi Ten song. So that was great. And then a few weeks prior, I released a single, and Guitar World also put that on their essential guitar tracks list. And that was really cool because I went online and I'm like, why is there a picture of the Rolling Stones? But like it showed up in my Google alerts as my band. And I was like, oh, because I got put on a list of songs with the Rolling Stones. Okay.
That's always
pretty
a good
cool.
Well,
Yeah. So that was
being on
the
the
highlight.
inside that you should be proud of that, because it doesn't really matter if there's a pandemic, because there's a bazillion guitar players out there that any editor of any music magazine can cull from at any time, pre-pandemic, pandemic, post-pandemic. So I don't think it was just that the pool was smaller. I just think it was you had an awesome riff and an awesome track and they went for it. So
thank you so much.
And Mike
that makes it even sweeter.
Yeah.
Absolutely appreciate that coming from you.
As the person who's rejected thousands of people, Mike definitely knows that that's true, right?
Yeah. Yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Matt.
And if you actually hate Michael Melinda for rejecting you, yeah, if you're one of the guitar players that Michael has hurt his feelings or her feelings, please email Michael and tell him about how we'll send you a hurt feelings report.
I'll just apologize to everyone.
That's amazing.
Now.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
there we go. The official apology.
Those were the good things.
That is a point for today, trying to figure out how to reinvent your career and evolve and actually work within the music press. Is that, you don't understand that, editors and how relevant magazine and publishing brands are in the future. Who knows?
Oh, yeah.
But it also works for everybody you're trying to greet. It's like, I would get calls where, somebody would call the office and I'd actually pick up the phone and I'd get this, my name's Brad, and I just put out this record. And it's like, okay. You really have to know how to talk, like what happened with your riffs, networking and having people that are looking out for you and saying, hey, you should apply for this. And, just keeping in the slipstream is very important. And, you need to know how to talk to people. And you don't have to be a good salesman, but you just have to let the person on the other side of the phone or the email know exactly what you're selling. You can't go, I'm really great because everybody's great. You should listen to this because everybody thinks we should listen to everything. You have to really have a compelling story.
Yeah, I mean, and it's difficult, and it's one of the reasons why PR professionals that are really great at it exist in this world for a long time, and they're sought after because there's an art form to basically pitching yourself, and most musicians are really bad at it. I'm not particularly great at it, but I'm learning, and I'm learning for those people who are showing me how to.
Well, a tip there too is no professionals I know, because all the PR people I've worked with are awesome, but there are PR professionals out there who send scads of data out that no editor wants to read ever. No newspaper editor wants to read it. It's blah, 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 how great, cliche, 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 cliche. So I would say that even if you can afford a publicist, as an artist, you need to be on top of things and make sure that in your gut, they're selling you the way you feel is appropriate for whatever you're trying to do. Don't ever just trust the expert.
Yeah, no, it's hard. And I mean, there's a lot of for me, the chicken before the egg thing gets a little bit complicated too, because what I'm noticing, and I noticed this, with the last band that really gave it a go professionally that I was in, it's hard to get press until you get press, if that makes sense. It's like, going into a bank to try to apply for a loan when you don't have money, and if you had more money, then we could give you a loan. So, so that it just getting that first bit of press seems to be helpful, because then it almost gives people permission to continue to give you press. So, we'll see if it rolls out that way. But I have noticed that it's like once you get press, it's a lot easier to continue to get it, but it's a really hard start.
Yeah, well, I think like anything else, nobody wants to make a bad move. So if Linda's been covered somewhere else, there's we can't miss out on this if Linda's going to be huge, and then the B, well, Linda can't suck if publication C covered her, so I guess it's okay to get on that. I mean, there's publishing and it's a quagmire of luck and chance and grit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, like, I guess if like a publication takes a risk on you, you want to at least be able to quantify your decision making to the boss. So it's kind of like you say, well, they were in this guitar magazine, and so what's I just, why couldn't we have them? So it's like a way to cover your butt in a staff meeting.
Well, and we're talking, as I said earlier, about how do you manage your PR? I mean, whether it's Linda or anybody else, it's like if you don't have press, then telling a compelling story that sounds interesting, that's not a lie, not BS, not overwrought, because every editor hates the overwrought, I'm awesome, you should cover me thing. That just really doesn't work. But you should have a reason why you should fit into the news feed,
Yeah, I mean, and then ideally it's because your music fits with it too, which there's sometimes that's confusing to me. I see some things get pressed that I'm just like, wow, I had no idea how that fit into this, but okay.
Well, can you give us an example?
I'm not going to, because I feel like it's going to come out in a really bad way if I do. I'm going to leave it way open to interpretation.
That's the opposite of PR. That's the opposite of PR. It's not saying things on the internet that are going to put you in flames. Right.
But as in terms of like putting out a story that's truthful about yourself, that's difficult too, because like, again, me being a newer band, that's I've released some things, but in a non-traditional way. I don't even have a full album out. I have an EP and some singles because that's what I was able to do. When I was writing my own bio for my band, and I'm like, what am I going to say? Like, what do I even have to say about this? And then I was like, all right, just be honest about it. You started a band, you did it with a Kickstarter, you did something untraditional, and then talk about the music, because that's what's important to me. So I talked a lot about my, the heavy metal classic influences, and, just hope that somebody would make that connection and be into it and appreciate that kind of music, and the fact that somebody was doing it, and it seemed to work, and I got to be honest. So that's good.
Well, I think that's valuable. And, Matt has talked about stories, as well, because it's all about, negotiating your way in and asking for money, which Matt will explain at some point during the broadcast today, because that's also a way, Kingdom of Rock is trying to help musicians earn some revenue. But, what I'm
all ears
is, I think that a lot of times in the instance you just talked about, a musician panics and goes, well, I was in this local band for 5 years, and I played in this cover band and blah blah blah. And I mean, the major market press could give a crap about stuff that wasn't successful. So you're in a local band. Who cares? I mean, I think how you went about it, saying, here's how I tried to get into the slipstream, here's what my influences were, here's what I'm trying to do as an artist, is a much more compelling story than putting up credits that aren't really credits. And it's amazing how difficult it is to get musicians to let go of the credits that aren't really credits. But I should say that I was in this really awesome cover band. It's like, no, you shouldn't. No one cares.
Yeah. Well, one good way to get for all you artists out there, one good way to get your foot in the door if you don't have press, like Linda was saying, where you have to have press to get press, is you can align yourself with a charity or some type of a nonprofit or a cause, and align your band with them temporarily, something that you care about, whether it's, rescuing animals or helping the homeless or raising money for maybe not a political party wouldn't be a good idea, but maybe it would be, who knows? I mean, you can get press by being the musician in that space. And so that's a good way to kind of get your foot in the door if you have nothing, if you're just a local band and you're like, how do we get in the news? You got to make some news. And everybody loves a good story, how some musicians are helping save some pets in the, like whatever it is, and it's not disingenuous. You don't want it to be like a fake thing. It should be something that you care about and that you could get behind, but it is a good way to create press for yourself. And I found that personally. has worked for me.
Yeah.
Well, Linda, how are you? You have a single out now. Are you composing more music, or
Yeah.
or more basically, how are you keeping your morale and creativity going while you're sheltered?
A couple of ways. I mean, still continuing obviously to work on music. I always do my writing and the demos for all the songs that eventually get recorded, with 100% full production. They all start here. And so I'm doing that. And I've been able to actually put the time into really pushing this new single and kind of communicating with some new fans and doing things like this and being on shows and meeting you guys. So that's a lot of good stuff that I normally wouldn't have the time to do because, I'm like every other musician starting out. I spend a lot of hours working, just to keep things going. And my music has very much been a labor of love for me. I don't have an investor. I don't have a label, that's phase 2. So I'm in phase 1, which is work really hard and then put all your resources that you can into what you're doing. So yeah, I've been doing that. And then as soon as we're able to start, opening up rehearsal studios, we'll go back to rehearsing as a live band. And I am still excited to play shows. I don't know what capacity we're going to be able to do that this year, but whatever capacity we can, we're going to give it a try. So.
Well, I did want to point out, if you guys haven't heard Marishi Ten, it's the production of your videos and your music is so good. It sounds so good. It looks good. It's very, like a lot of new bands, you'll see they'll put a video out and you're like, oh, it's pretty good, but there's something missing, like in all of your videos, it like makes sense to the song. It has the right context. It's well produced. It looks cinematic. Like how did you go about like getting that high quality of production in your product?
I mean, a lot of tenacity, to be honest. Every time that I write a song, I always have, like most songwriters, I have these like really strong visual senses of, what the lyrics mean and how the music feels and what I would envision maybe having a video for. And I did realize that it's kind of pointless to put out music, especially singles at this point, if you don't have a good video to go along with it, because you need the visuals to go with it and they should be compelling. And aesthetic is very important to me. It's like making something look really cool is part of the fun for me. It's not work, it's like what I really enjoy doing. So, with each video that I released that you've seen on the YouTube channel for Marishi Ten, they're all done by different directors. They were all really different. This latest one, I can say that I don't think that director would have ever worked with me if I hadn't put the work into the previous 2 videos leading up to that point. So it's another thing of like, you have to kind of put yourself out there and you have to start doing stuff that's visually compelling, and then other people who are really awesome will notice that and want to be a part of your next thing. So this last video I worked with Matt Mahurin, and I don't know if you're familiar with
Enemy
him.
Now? Is that Enemy Now?
That's Never Look Back.
Never Look Back. Okay.
Yeah. So Never Look Back was directed by Matt Mahurin, who I've admired since I was a teenager. He directed Metallica, The Unforgiven.
I see that in the production a little bit. That's cool.
And I knew I wanted to do a video for this song. It was it was getting to be around Christmas time, and I wanted to spend my time off over the holidays really working on something, and I felt very compelled to finish it and release something this spring. And I'm so glad that I did that now, that I had this to share during this time. But in my creative briefs that I'll write to try to get a director to work with me, in my mind, I was always constantly imagining Matt Mahurin's work because I'm such a fan of it. And I was getting shot down by a lot of directors who were like, I don't have time to do this right now, and it's just not a possibility. Good song, though. Good luck to you. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to look Matt Mahurin up. Maybe he still lives in LA, and maybe he would be willing to work with someone who is not signed and unknown. And I just sent him a really honest email and said, I'm a really big fan of your work. Do you ever work with relatively unknown artists? And he goes, I work with all kinds of artists. What do you got? And I sent him a creative brief, and we had a couple phone conversations, and he was willing to do it, under very strict set of circumstances that worked to his schedule, which I would have been a fool not to, you know, give a chance and try to. And yeah, it was great. We shot that video in like 8 hours.
There you go.
Yeah, there it is.
So can you see that?
Work with somebody that you have a lot of respect for. What, and knowing that you're a visual person yourself, what do you think were the major things that he brought to the party as far as direction and concept?
That I did? I missed that, or that he
You know, what do you feel? Because, you know, not everybody can work with a director of Matt's level. So, since you were on the inside working with him, what did you feel were the major elements that he brought to the party?
Well, I mean, there was an absolute willingness to trust, which is somebody who's done the work that he does. Like, you know, like I said, you'd be a fool not to trust his creative vision. And for me, it was just coming very prepared to perform that day, because I knew that whatever he did was going to look amazing. So I just needed to trust in the performance. So I showed up there that day just very willing. And I mean, all the singing and stuff, that, yeah, it's synced, but you know, there was no like lip syncing going on. I mean, I was singing at top volume and, you know, and playing the way that I normally would, just to try to really like have the performance captured. That's also me running around in that gimp suit in the woods because I couldn't afford an actor to do it. So, so there was also a little bit of, you know, willingness to run around the woods in a cat suit and climb a small mountain range. So, you know, but yeah,
cool. Did you do that part after you had your hair done or before?
Well, you know, the funny thing is I didn't have my hair done. I had somebody do my makeup that day at my apartment at 6 a.m. because, you know, with Matt, it was like, we were just going to shoot this one-on-one and make it really, really as easy as possible to just like bang this video out. And so I showed up camera ready, but my hair was wet when the makeup artist came and he said to me, he goes, "What are you planning on doing with your hair?" And I said, "I don't think it's going to matter." And then it didn't, because I, you know, had a fan and a windblower on it the entire day. So
there you go. I'll show a picture of that. There we go. Is that right there? So it's like they made you put on a latex costume or something?
No, it's just a full black costume that you can use for like when you do like green screen effects and stuff.
Oh,
yeah, like a shadow suit.
Oh, that's cool.
And I wasn't sure how it was going to turn out. That was one of those things where I was just like, you know, Matt was like, some things are going to seem like they look really weird, but like just trust that they're going to look really cool. And I was like,
I liked it. It was a cool video. I recommend you guys checking that out. And now I was going to ask you, so as far as post-production, do you, in that experience, you went there, you did the shoot. Do you like, how involved were you in the post-production, or did they just do it? I
wasn't in this one. In this, that is all the magic of Matt. The last video that I shot, Enemy Now, that I was a little bit more involved in the editing process and kind of went back and forth more. And that director, Chad Michael Ward, he's awesome. And again, we shot that very minimally in just a studio downtown. And that was performance, but no guitar or anything like that. It was just singing. And that I was trying to tell a story, basically. It was like a reenactment of a ritual and, you know, kind of coming into your own power. The video prior to that, that has all the green screen effects, that I was very involved with. And that was created with my friend Josh Ashley, and we shot it all on green screen at a home he was renting in Texas at the time. And we worked on that extensively together, you know, and he created, nothing in that video exists in reality. That is all green screen, and everything, all those, all the imagery was created in post. So that was a real challenge, you know?
Well, I'm definitely going to hit you up after the broadcast and pick your brain about this, because I'm getting ready to make my first video. So,
good. Maybe I can set you in the direction of
this is good timing.
Yeah, I love doing videos. It's one of my favorite parts of you know, if I could, I would do a video in some capacity for every song I ever released. I just think it's so cool to get to put a visual to it, you know.
Well, let me ask you this. as far as getting into music, like go back to the early days when you were just getting started, tell us a little bit about your story. Like, how did you get into music? How did you get into metal? Were you always a metal person, stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, pretty early on, I was a kid that was always into music, and I was, I discovered my voice really early, and always sang in choir in school, and I was a high school orchestra geek, and my instrument was flute. But at about 15, I really wanted to learn an instrument that I could accompany myself singing. That's how I first picked up guitar. My mother had an acoustic guitar, and I just dug it out of the closet and started learning. And I never went to music school. I've taken lessons from people over time, but I never had any formal training, which I don't suggest. A lot of people like to say that they did that and say that self-taught is the way to go. I think if I could go back in a time machine, I would have gone to school for music. I think I would have really enjoyed it, but for whatever reason, that wasn't my path. But yeah, I mean, once I started playing guitar, then it opened up a whole world to me. And when I was 16, I got, my first real job, and I started working at a record store. And I just went to every show I possibly could go to, anything that I could go to, anything that at the time the reps would still come into the record stores and, give out tickets to stuff. I'd go to any all ages show that I could possibly go to. It was in Philadelphia. And then that's how I just gravitated into metal, because it was like, there was just nothing that was better.
Because it was the coolest music of all time. No, Michael, me and Michael are getting a fight.
Yeah. No.
I'm not going to fight with anybody. I love all.
Yeah, I mean, trust me, when I was into it, when I was in high school in Philadelphia at the time, it was not cool. I was not cool. I was not the cool kid in school. I was not cool for doing what I did. I was super, very much an outcast. But that's where having that job at the record store really saved me. And there were a bunch of kids that worked there who went to Art Institute of Philadelphia that I became friends with. And, I got my good subculture of other nerdy friends to go to shows with, and totally saved me. So, and I stayed in Philadelphia for a little while, and I went to college around there. And then I was like, I got it. I don't want to be here. And I got really antsy, and I knew I wanted to go to LA. I knew I wanted to be in a city where I could have the possibility of making music on a very different level than I was going to if I stayed in Philadelphia. And this is not to down Philadelphia or the level of musicianship that happens there, because it's an amazing city. But I just knew that I really felt I needed to be in LA to do the things I was going to do. And I didn't want to wait. So I packed up my car, and I had a little bit of money saved, very little bit of money saved. And I literally just came out here and started a new life, and just been some ups and downs, but it's generally been up.
Well, I just did that, but I waited until I was 49 years old to do that. So
better late than never.
Right.
So yeah, that's where we're at now.
Well, that's awesome.
That commitment is always a wonder to me, because with all the musicians we've had on the show, there's a thing about intention. A lot of people, and we talked about this with Jennifer Batten, a lot of musicians practice incessantly, and there's no, it just doesn't fall in your lap unless you're really, really, really lucky. And as Jennifer said, if it does fall in your lap, your career is probably not going to be a long one. But it is quite a leap of faith to what both you and Matt did, is to pick up and go to a music center, and knowing that there's a bazillion people that did the same thing as you did, and to try to work through that and work through all the distortion and actually, get noticed. I mean, it's a huge leap of faith.
Pardon the pun, too. Work through all the distortion, metal. Anyway, see, even Michael, he can't stop because metal's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, metal does not own distortion, by the way. Matter of fact, the Blues Cats and actually Link Ray, who was not a metal person, started that. So
they just perfected it. No, I'm kidding.
Maybe you don't think that the guys in the 70s, the guys and girls in the 70s perfected that?
They just had loud amps. That's all.
But that is distortion.
That's what produces distortion.
I know.
It's still
I'm being silly.
Yeah. Although I will say, not having to turn a 200-watt Marshall up to 10 and destroying your hearing is a good thing these days. That's for sure.
Although when you have bell bottoms on and it blows your pants legs straight, that's got to be a cool feeling, though.
Best feeling ever.
All right. Well, Linda, what's next for the band then? Have you guys obviously you for the traditional path of going out and building your band and taking it out on the road, like what are you guys kind of looking at now? Or are you just holding pattern?
I'm staying really adaptable right now because like I said, we don't know. I'm not of the doomsday mindset that like, music is never going to be what it was. And we're not, at some point we are going to get back to touring. Will it be a while? Will it look exactly the same for a while? Absolutely not. I keep making the joke that when we first start playing, we might have to do some shows that are going to be very limited attendance. And then we're a new band in LA. So the reality is our first couple shows are probably going to be pretty limited attendance. So, if that's something that we have to do, that, we play shows, but maybe it's in a very intentionally a smaller way, that's cool. People do stuff with live streaming. I am in LA. There's some really great studios. Maybe we can do some stuff like that. Maybe we just continue to write and maybe, I'm able to do some other videos and stuff. I am very excited to play live as soon as I possibly can, like everybody else. So I think, like I said, we're just going to try to stay adaptable to however that looks like over the next year.
Maybe we could have a Kingdom of Rock little music festival like show with like Crimson Symphony. I don't know.
Yeah. Behind some plexiglass.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Well, that's just to keep you guys safe from the tomatoes they'll be throwing at my band.
Well, it is interesting because the Beatles kind of broke the mold about that. Before that, whether you were Sammy Davis Jr. or the Rat Pack or Jazzers or a rock band, you basically played small clubs, supper clubs. There wasn't this whole arena deal.
Yeah.
That kind of happened with the Beatles at Shea Stadium and then a few assorted other people. So if we have to get back to, nobody wants to go to an arena anymore because the chance of infection is higher. Maybe that's how the industry comes back, is we just have more of an intimate connection. Maybe you're playing to 100 people. It's going to be interesting.
I have a prediction. When you just said that, I just thought of this. Okay, so all the restaurants are going out of business, right? All these clubs are going out of business right now, but eventually you're going to have all this real estate available, right? So new businesses are going to come out, and it's going to be to satisfy a need for people to get out in smaller, quantities of, groups of people. I think you might be right. Maybe we're going to see a shift in the music industry, and where we could get that local music scene back, like you talk about a lot, Mike. I
mean, you're right. Linda's right. I think people are going to want to see music. They're just not going to want to get sick. So how many people at a time? And maybe residencies come back in a big way because you can't, your band can't play to 1,000 people at once, Linda. So maybe you're at one of these places. Because I agree, Matt. I think that there's going to be a lot of real estate opening up, new investors, new opportunities. Maybe all of a sudden you have, Marishi 10 a whole week, and maybe there's 20 to 50 people a night, sequestered in their booths or whatever. And how you make money at that is you don't have to tour different city every day, but you're in one place with your gear set up and your tech needs go down a little bit, and you play for 5 days in one spot. Could work.
Yeah, I mean, and there's something to be said for the possibility that I do think that shows are going to start to happen over the course of the year in terms of people being able to put the money into touring, and all of the issues that come with travel along with it. That might take a little while, but there's always a chance that maybe some local music scenes might wind up becoming a little bit stronger because of that. If you have people that really, if touring and doing tons of touring becomes really difficult and people are kind of sequestered a little bit more to stay within certain regions while they work this out. I don't know. Maybe there will be a stronger local music scene. It's really hard to tell. It's hard to tell.
Well, and I can imagine some of the big bands are just going like, oh man, this so sucks with this virus because gas is $2 a gallon and motels are begging you to book. We could kill them on the rates, I mean, touring costs could go down like crazy.
I think that what we're going to find though is some states are a lot less restrictive than others.
Yeah, that's very true.
So, like for example, California is probably one of the strictest states, and so like if you go to West Virginia, my parents live in West Virginia, and they were the last people to shut down and the first people to open up because they had very few COVID cases there. Yes. And so maybe what people will do is they'll go do music festivals at places like that, or
it's totally possible. It's totally possible. And I've had some promoters from places in the middle of the country reach out to me to kind of ask what our plans are for the year. And they're definitely excited about, playing as soon as they can and not being socially irresponsible. I don't want to make it seem like any of these people are reaching out to me and they're like, we don't care. We're just going to do, I mean, there's definitely, but they're just, if you're in a state with less restrictions, then you're going to do more. So it makes sense.
There probably are going to be these ethical choices that musicians have to make because the state governor may, for whatever reason, go, yeah, we're open, but it doesn't mean the virus is, like they said earlier today, the virus is not going on vacation. The virus is not giving us a truce. So some of these states that open up a little too quick or, might end up being flashpoints. So it's going to be interesting how you or Matt or I would go, oh, I've got this tour on the table. Is it responsible? Should I do it? What do I think about my own safety and the safety of my fans? It's not going to be easy, I don't think.
No, and I mean, I certainly would never want to create a situation where I was putting people in harm, in any way. So I feel that sense of responsibility. I don't know. Like I said, I'm curious to see what happens over the next couple months. There's some great shows that I missed over the past 2 months. And, I know some of those bands have rescheduled, into 2021, December, January, some of those smaller shows. There's some stuff that I have tickets to. I mean, I was planning on going to see Rammstein in September. I haven't heard an official word on that. I find it hard to believe that tour is going to happen at that time, So I know a few things have been canceled coming up that I was hoping might still happen, but
just make a video in full respirator suit. And that way you can take that on tour and the branding will match, right? And then you can play anywhere. You're like, we're 100% safe.
But you can put your twist on it, Linda.
That's fantastic. I'm not stealing your idea. That's fantastic. You just said you were looking to do a video. I think you found your concept.
There you go, Matt.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I spent too much time wearing chem warfare suits in the military. I hate that. It's horrible.
Yeah.
It is funny, though.
People might also think that you're like an industrial band. If you
I was thinking you could do it when you said Rammstein. That's what made me kind of think that a little bit.
One of my friends, Dale Krebins, is VP at Tech 21, and they just put a signature pedal out for my mind's a blank at the guitar player for Rammstein, but she was all jazzed because they're actually going to see Rammstein and Lyon, Paris, next month or something because they had a huge tour going, and it was like, well, that's not happening.
Yeah. I was definitely looking forward to. I don't make it a point to go to a lot of festivals, but I really enjoyed going to Psycho Las Vegas last year, and I was planning on going to that. There was amazing lineup this year. So I'm sad that and they didn't reschedule. They're like, nope, next year, just not going to happen this year. So we'll see what happens. I'd actually love to play that next year. So if any of the bands are, if it doesn't suit their schedule to play it in 2021 and anybody's watching this that books Psycho Las Vegas, hit me up right here.
I got somebody.
We'll make it happen.
I have somebody I can ask. I think I might know somebody.
That'd be great. Marishi Ten would love to play that. So you know. So, and again, you know, so maybe we look into next summer and we just stay busy doing a lot of online content in the meantime. You know, people still need stuff to entertain them. So
when you speaking of you know, content, you know, when you produce your records at home and then typically pre-pandemic bring them to the band, what type of things change, or do you do you like your bandmates to contribute, or do you say, this is my vision, I want us to pretty much stick to the demo I'm handing you?
the song it stays pretty close to where the demo is. And that's not to say that would ever be different. It's just that, you know, with Marishi 10, I had a really, I wanted to start the band in a traditional sense where I just like had a band and everybody was this like equally collaborative effort. But I just had a hard time doing that. Quite honestly, we're talking about being honest, I couldn't keep a band together. Everybody had different life paths. Everybody had other things they were interested in. And, you know, I would have an idea for something and it would, I don't think other people would necessarily hear it. So it was like a fight to get it to come to fruition. And so I kind of just like kept going with it with whoever was available at the time. And that put a lot of responsibility for the writing in my hands. And that's just the way that it's been, you know? So I finished songs, and then the biggest difference is that I am not a drummer. I'm sure you can appreciate that. So I'm not a drummer. I will program drums to go along with the song that I have. And then I will work with my drummer, who's been the drummer. He's been a constant in the band, Patrick Martin. And so that's the biggest difference. There'll be some transitions that will change because of, obviously he brings a creativity to the drums that I don't. And then that's the first thing we'll do live is we'll do drums and then, you know, redo guitars in the studio and layer in vocals. But for all intents and purposes, the song's pretty much done when it gets to that point.
I think it's interesting how, you know, if you're open enough to have a conventional band, hey, like we're the Beatles or the Rolling Stones, everybody's ideas get, you know, full consideration, that it was hard to keep those bands together. But you would think, especially in the rock field, but you saying, okay, it's my vision, we need to stay close to my vision, that it's easier to have those band members. It's interesting.
Yeah. I don't know. And like I said, I'm not opposed to having situations be collaborative in the future. And I love working with other people, and I love sitting and writing with people. And, you know, I love sitting with another guitar player and getting to kind of like, you know, try out ideas and riff back and forth. And then, you know, opening up a session and seeing how things layer and what comes out of it. I think that's great. It's just, I haven't been able to have that experience with Marishi 10 recently. So, but I've had some great people play, you know, on some of those songs, you know, and do some guest, you know, solos and stuff like that. So I'm getting to work with people and I'm getting to learn from them. I learned a lot from, you know, the Mitchell Marlowe produced the last 3 songs, and he's a fantastic producer and also a fantastic guitar player. And every time I record with him, I learn something new. So.
Speaking of something new, is there anything exciting in the world of technology that you've been recently discovered or experienced? It's kind of an ambush question, but anything cool out there that you can't live without in the tech world or in the guitar tech world?
Well, obviously, in the technology world, I could never imagine, you know, recording without Pro Tools again, which seems obvious, but I only started learning Pro Tools maybe about 7 years ago. I'm very new to production. So I can't imagine ever recording without, you know, that kind of a graphic interface. And although I still am pretty old school with my gear and I still play, you know, vintage Marshalls, I really do think that the world of amp profiling is incredible. And when you talk about being able to, you know, tour on a smaller budget with, you know, and keeping things really tight with what touring production is, I think, you know, like Kempers are amazing, and amp modeling is really phenomenal and really cool. And it's something that I need to get more comfortable with as a guitar player using.
I just downloaded the THU Overloud plugin. And it sounds so good. I mean, it's disgusting how good it sounds. I was just like, wow, they've finally started to get this right. And that's just a plugin, you know? I mean, it's like $300, but I mean, it's definitely, I remember like when Line 6 came out, at first, everyone's like, there's cool effects, but the distortion's not good enough, you know? But now, man, it sounds exactly like the amp. And it's, and you don't have to buy a Kemper now to get that good quality, or a a high dollar head or something like that.
Yeah. How about you? What are some of your favorites of new technology?
I don't know, Mike. What are you playing with lately? Well, actually, besides the EBO, that's kind of old technology.
Well, and that's 70s technology. So,
Yep.
yeah. I mean, I've always been someone who just enjoys cracking the code. I even when guitar modeling wasn't that good, there were people that were coming out with interesting ideas with so-called bad sound.
Yeah.
I always hated that digital versus analog versus tube scenario, because it's all about creativity and what works best for you. If a crappy digital sound, what I would consider a crap digital sound, works for you and you create something awesome with it, then all glory to you. If you need a Marshall half stack to make your muse come through, then that's awesome too. But I do love that I can even trade tracks on GarageBand, which is a free Apple software, and make records with that. Because you don't need a full bandwidth for a guitar track. I mean, guitars like this in the frequency range. So you might not want to record drums on GarageBand or a less Pro Toolsian software, DAW. But I just like that everything's in. You can make great music with everything. I mean, even some of the very, let's face it, they're not expensive plugins in GarageBand for Vox amps or Marshall amps. I mean, they're actually surprisingly good depending how you use them. That gets into a whole other discussion about are you destroying the good sound with too many effects and too much reverb, and do you understand frequency spectrums when you mix? Is stuff fighting with other stuff? Because I feel that stuff is more of the problem for a lot of musicians who do their own tracks at home than the actual source sound. It's destroying a bunch of source sounds because you don't understand how to make those frequency ranges exist together in a compelling way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think really, like, as far as tech goes right now, I mean, it's pretty much, I saw something, and we talked about this the other day, where Jared Dines was doing a guitar solo duel with a guy playing a laptop, and it was like he was just he was just ripping up the fretboard, and then the guy on the laptop was like doing all, and it was like almost indistinguishable to your ears, and it almost makes you mad, because you're like, this is just disgusting and I hate this. But the truth is, like Mike said yesterday, it's the creation of the art. It's not the tools that you use, because you're still a human being and you're being creative and you're creating art. And it's like, although to Mike's point yesterday, it's not like we want to go to an arena and see a bunch of dudes on a laptop,
Yeah.
Unless they're DJs, though, and they get paid big money.
Speaking of technology, I'm going to grab a cable and plug my laptop in before it dies. I just got to warn it.
All right.
Speak amongst yourselves.
Cool. Okay. We'll talk about Linda. No. Well,
yeah, but she actually is leaving the building. It's funny.
Oh no, that's cool. Well, I think one thing I really liked about Marishi Ten, though, is definitely go check out all the videos. They are so well produced. I really liked them, and now that I know that the Never Look Back is from the Unforgiven guy, I completely see it. Like, it's like I can see little bits and pieces of that in the video.
Did I miss anything good?
No, we were just talking bad about you.
Talking about how unfortunate a person you are.
No, I was just telling Kingdom of Rock that the Never Look Back video, I could definitely see the Unforgiven touches in there, just like a little bit of Unforgiven spice,
That's like, that makes me so happy to hear, because like I said, that was a dream come true for me to work with somebody like that. And when we were working together, he had some of the stuff that he had designed. He did like models and stuff for the Tom Waits video he did, and it was like, I was like, this is like being in a museum. like a little bit of rock history.
Did you
working with
guys
somebody like
did you
that.
guys make a like a storyboard for the video? Did you do you go into
No.
that kind of planning for videos?
We didn't have a storyboard. He sent me a treatment, so I knew like basically, you know, it wasn't like an exact shot list, you know, because we were going to be playing with some stuff when we got there. But you know, he definitely had a plan of, you know, we're going to shoot here, 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 and you know, had a number of different like a white screen and, you know, a couple different screens, and then certain areas he wanted to film outdoors and stuff. So, and I had a treatment, but it wasn't like, you know, picture per picture storyboarded out. So it was a surprise for me too.
Well, we are getting close to the top of the hour here, and we I want to give everybody a chance to say one last thing here. So let's start with Michael. Michael, what do you got for us today? Close it out.
What do you got? Well, thanks, Linda, for being on the show, and I do appreciate, you know, your creativity, not just in the audio world but the video world. You know, I've always been a huge theater, film, cinema geek, so it does. I do love seeing when we kind of cross-pollinate genres and doing it well, to where the music's not cheating the images or the images aren't cheating the music. So I would agree with Matt that anybody who wants to see a good marriage of visuals and music should check out Marishi 10.
Thank you so much. That's amazing. Yeah, I really appreciate you guys having me on here. This is a very fun conversation. Very nice getting to know both of you guys. And I mean, I would just leave everybody with keep checking stuff out new online, because even though it's a difficult time and there's a lot of, you know, kind of stuff being pounded at you in the media, there's also some very good stuff creatively that's happening. And, you know, we can't let all of the horrible things get in the way of all of like the really cool stuff that we can be focusing on too, in terms of art and music. And, you know, so keep searching, make Spotify playlists, share them with your friends, share links, share music, share good stuff.
Speaking of, you made me think of a question I meant to ask you. When it comes to Spotify and getting your track played, what are there any strategies that you would be willing to share that have worked for you?
Oh man, honestly, no, I feel like I'm failing miserably in that department. I've approached a few people to be like, hey, you know, would you be willing to add us on this playlist, you know, here and there? And some people, if somebody does, I always make sure that, you know, we cross promote it, return the favor, and kind of help each other out. I recently started making my own playlist. I just made a really cool playlist called Making Marishi 10. That's a collection of all different influences from my songwriting. And I'm going to start sharing that around. And, you know, hopefully that, you know, I have heard that if you kind of link yourself in playlists with other bands in your genre, that's helpful. So I'm going to test it out. But no, I mean, unfortunately, how to get on playlists and how to get people following you on Instagram, I'm all trying to figure that out myself right now too.
And I really don't think, you know, there's so many experts out there that'll tell you, oh yeah, pay me $200 for my course and I'll tell you exactly how to do it. But yeah. I really don't think there's a formula. I from everybody that I've talked to, they're trying to get like, how do I get my plays up without cheating? How do I get, you know, more listens, you know, on Spotify and everything? And I really do think though, it's about building real relationships with people and getting that hookup. I think that's really 100%. About the only super valuable way to do that. What do you think, Mike? You work for a major label. What are some strategies?
Well, I mean, God, I don't want consultants to come after me with knives now, but I would just be careful if you're an independent musician about who you talk to and how much money you spend, because obviously, you know, to stay in the game, you have to save as much money as you can to be able to put your record out, pay for your videos, etc. So, you know, it's as you said, Matt, it's kind of difficult sometimes because the thing is, there's that in music, dance, film, you know, to be a big film star, there's that X factor that no genius or expert can tell you. They can tell you all the things you got to do to get your Spotify playlist to more people. But if you don't have that indefinable X factor, it's not going to matter how you market it. You're not going to get to, be perhaps, a superstar or even earning money. So I definitely feel like a more authentic community thing where at least you've got people who like to talk to you, and even if they're not going gaga over their music, they're willing to help you promote because they think you're a cool person and you got a cool message. I mean, it can always start that way. And then, once you kind of discover that you do have that X factor going on, you're starting to get kind of viral. At that point, maybe it makes sense to hire an expert to really launch your rocket, toward the stratosphere. But like everything else, I think you just have to be careful with your fixed costs, so to speak,
I think that Grant Cardone, he talks about, and he's not a musician, but he is a billionaire, and he's a real estate investor, but he's super big in social media, like millions of followers, gets tons of engagement. And he says the biggest problem for anybody that wants to be somebody is you don't know enough people, and not enough people know you. And even though we want to look, everyone's looking at social media as a way to kind of connect with people, but everyone's looking at social media as a way to connect with people, right? Yeah. So what I'm finding, especially in doing this podcast, is that the most valuable connections that I have made are not on social media. They're on face-to-face, real conversations that I have with people, whether it's people that are, and you can do that by going out on tour, right? And meeting the fans out there and connecting with them with your music. That's one way of doing it. But other ways of doing it is networking and just figuring out, like, how can I meet more people? I know people that drive around in Uber with their CD in the Uber. And then people are like, hey, what's that? That's my band. Here, you want a card? Let me give you a card. Here's a card for, you can go to my website, and if you put your email address in, you can get a free something, whatever, 10% off in the merch store. I mean, there's all kinds of ways to meet people. And I think we forget how valuable that actual face-to-face human connection is. And the help comes from everyone that's ever helped me has been somebody that I've met and had a personal interaction with. So I don't know. Maybe it's not as complicated. Maybe you just need to meet more people.
Well, I mean,
that's an interesting thing to think about right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Even on social media, you won't believe how many musicians, artists make the mistake of somebody reaches out and says, hey, I love what you did, and they don't answer. Now, it can take a significant amount of time if you get a lot of feedback and a lot of messages to sit there. Okay, I'm going to get up at 6 a.m. and I'm going to answer social comments now for the next hour. But that's really how you build that connection and that trust with someone, where that makes them feel good that you're actually having a personal response to them when they took the time to respond to you. And musicians are kind of bad at that as a whole.
I will say one thing though. LinkedIn is a very underused resource in the music industry. I have about 17,000 people on LinkedIn.
Really?
And yeah, and they're all music industry people. And what I did is I went to, I did a search for Spotify, and I found all the employees that worked at Spotify, and I added every single one of them, sent them a friend request.
Just creeping.
Right. And I did that for labels, and I did that for, and I was going through the connections that I had on LinkedIn right now that I can get an email for and send an email to those people. And it's kind of cool. So there's ways to be creative that other people are not willing to go to that level of dedication. But you can find ways to connect with people that can help you on LinkedIn very, very easily. Just a thought.
Just make sure they didn't send you the LinkedIn email rather than the actual get a hold of the person email.
Well, sometimes it is and sometimes it isn't. Yeah. So, it just depends. Well, anyway, so I just wanted to close. Thank you so much, Linda, for being on the show, and nice meeting you.
Thank you for having me on. This was really fun.
Yep. And hopefully we'll see you at one of our guest meetups and here in the near future. Absolutely. And Mike, have a good rest of your Saturday in the San Francisco area. It looks beautiful out there.
It is awesome. There we go. There's the tree. There's
Oh
the,
yeah, nice. I think I'm gonna go for a walk and get some vitamin D on the skin so that I don't get the COVID. I heard that's the new thing that you're supposed to do. Everyone's gonna work.
A suntan will save you from the virus. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's what they say. I don't know. Anyway, well, I hope you guys have a great
shout out to. You should tell Darren. Awesome, Darren.
Oh yeah, Darren, thank you so much for dropping videos down there and helping everybody out there. Sorry.
Thank you, Darren.
All right. Well, we're out
Bye, guys.
today.
Thanks so much.
See you guys. Next one that we have is going to be Tuesday, and I can't remember who it is. Oh, I think it's
I can check right now.
It's Mixie from Stitched Up Heart, I think.
Yep. And then
Yeah,
on
Wednesday,
we've got Clementine from Zepparella. And then on Thursday, we've got the sister duo Chaos, keyboard and drummer. They do a lot of really cool electronica stuff.
Yep. So we'll see you then. And then the meetup on Sunday.
Yeah.
Tomorrow.
Okay.
All right,
Bye, guys. See you
everybody.
later.
We'll see you later.